Alright, this guide reflects only my theories based on what I've gathered from the Japanese names of different characters and places in the series. But I had to give many thanks to Zelda Universe for their pronunciation guide. They listed names, the Japanese names, and also what they thought. And I agree with many of them. And I was actually happy to find that a lot of my original thoughts matched theirs. I only did find a few that didn't, but that I may agree with now, so that I changed my pronunciation. And so I'll start with Link. For the record, I do know, or at least I study Japanese, so I can give the exact pronunciation, well, as close as I can for the original names. We start with Link, and so, well, that one's not that hard. It's simply Link, and his Japanese name, as shown here, is Rinku. But before I go on, I want to note about the not directly the pronunciation of certain words, but the accenting, like epona versus epona, or epona. In Japanese, I'll go over in a second, though there's a certain thing about it that may not always, but usually or sometimes indicates the accents of the word in English. So furthermore, let's move on to Zelda. Hers isn't any harder either. Her English name is definitely pronounced Zelda, and her Japanese name shown here is zeruda, and which is, yes, it's just Japanese pronunciation of Zelda, not any harder. Next on to Ganondorf. No one's had any problems with this one either. It's Ganondorf. And his Japanese name is ganondorufu. And like Zelda and Link, it's the same thing. Epona. Now, here, I've always pronounced Epona as Epona, but I've always been told many times it's Epona or Epona, usually because it's either probably supposed to sound like pony or referring to a goddess or something. Well, now, I've checked not only the guide, but in a baby name section, it shows it being as Epona and being deriving from it being a name deriving from French. Well, this one is a little difficult, so it can really be either Epona or Epona, but I'm pretty sure it is the not the e in the beginning. The Japanese name for Epona is Epona. Now, here's what I wanted to discuss. It's the fact that in Japanese, normally, if you'll see, in order to accent something, they normally, like specifically, if you wanted to say Epona, they would usually put or a line in front of the po in the katakana, which indicates the po or the character or any of the katakana characters are extended in sound, and so it's not Epona. It wouldn't be Epona. It's Epona, shown here, Epona. And so if it's usually left alone, not always, but usually, it's usually indicating that the first sound may get at least part or all of the accenting. So it leaves me to believe it's Epona. And so, though I do believe it could there's just a possibility, though, it could be Epona too. that may lead to, but I'm pretty sure it's the its beginning. So it's either Epona or Epona. No, Epona or Epona. Continuing on, we've got Midna next. Now, as I was saying earlier, due to the Japanese name, there being no, as I could say, accentation for her Japanese name, we are led to believe it's supposed to be Midna instead of Midna. Well, I don't know why people pronounce it like that, but I guess some are led to believe that it's supposed to sound like midnight or something. But anyway, her English name would be pronounced Midna, and her Japanese name is pronounced Midana. Midana. And then we have Zant. This one's not any real harder either. It's just one syllable too. It's just Zant. And his Japanese name is Zanto. Zanto. Then we have Ilia. It's either Ilia or Ilia, but it doesn't really matter in English, because it's kind of shown the same way in Japanese, iria. So, we're not really sure about that. Though, I'm pretty sure, again, it's accent on the first vowel in it, iria. So it would be Ilia or Ilia. Though, ironically enough, I used to believe it was Leah, because in the game, the I always kind of looked like an L, but I was, I don't know, not paying attention or something. So it always looked kind of like a double L, Leah or something. But it's probably Ilia, so I'm pretty, or Ilia. Then we have Din, and this one's no brainer either. Din, and the Japanese name is Din. So yeah. And for well, this one's not too hard, but it's really sure because the Japanese name is a little different, but not too much. So it goes by the same kind of pattern. The Japanese name for is Firoru. Firoru. So it would be Fa-ro-re. 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 Next we have Nayru. Nayru is that hard either. Her Japanese name is Nayru, which is exactly the same. It's and in this case that the extension of the ne sound may indicate that the accentation goes on the first syllable, Nayru, so it's not neeru or something, which would sound kind of odd. Then we have Kafei. Well, this one is one of those instances I was telling that the extension of the Japanese sound does not always indicate the accentation, or anyway, I'm led to believe that it's either Kafei or Kafei, with the accent on the fei. It's probably supposed to be a reference to café in Spanish, or just so the accent, because in Spanish the accent goes over the e. While you can clearly see though in Japanese name Kafei, the ka is extended. So in this case, it's probably not indicating that. And like I said, it won't always indicate something like that. So I'm pretty sure it is Kafei or Cafe. Then Majora. Yeah, I've only had a few people pronounce it differently, but I'm pretty sure it's not Majora. It's always been Majora everywhere else I've heard it. The Japanese name is a little different, but not much. Mujura. 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 That is a little different from Majora, but in this case, in mujura kind of indicates like the sound in English. In this case, like, so it's more like Majora, and so it's not that hard to figure out. I think I've also heard this word elsewhere. Like, it hasn't been used. I've only found it like actually use an actual word, so it might not have been entirely made up. And then we have Tattle. Tattle's name isn't any big deal, same with her brother Tail. Though we know that there are obvious references to Tattle and Tail because their Japanese names are slightly different, but they have the same kind of reference. Tattle's Japanese name is Chatto, which is, it's trying to derive from English word chat. And, well, chat and tattle are pretty much the same thing. And so, the same thing with tail. Tail's name in Japanese is Toreru, which is, English for, well, Japanese meaning the English word trail. And so there are references to different English words or their personalities. And so those aren't any harder. Tattle and tail. And then Saria. I'm very sure about this one. It's not Saraya, Saria, or anything else. It's Saria. The Japanese name... Saria's Japanese name is Saria, which is meant exactly how it's pronounced in English. No accentation other than the beginning. Just Saria. Saria.